Okay, now that you have launched Hyprland by typing in Hyprland at the TTY or by logging in using your favorite display manager, you should be able to see a screen like this. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do is, of course, remove the warning. So if you have installed Kitty, which you should have done already, you should be able to press Super Q and have the Kitty terminal open up, after which we just need to open the Hyprland config with our favorite text editor right here. And once we do that, we should be able to scroll down, or rather right here, get rid of this auto generator equals 1 line. So as soon as we do that and save the changes, as you can see, the warning up top gets removed. We can also get rid of these comments that you see here that were just example comments, so on and so forth. Okay, great. Now, once that's done, next thing we need to change are monitor settings. Now, I've already changed the monitor settings by default. So here I've just replaced preferred for 1920 by 1080 at 144, which is basically what this monitor is capable of. Otherwise, it's going to say preferred over here. So the first little argument that you give to monitor is going to be the name of the monitor itself. So if you take a look at hyperctl monitors, you should get a list of different monitors that have been attached to your computer. Now, depending on which monitor you want Hyprland to show up on, you just have to get the monitor from here, and then you have to put that before the resolution here. Okay, that is going to be for the monitor choosing part. After that, this is the actual resolution of the monitor along with the refresh rate. So I personally have chosen 1920 by 1080 at 144. That's going to be the resolution and refresh rate that this monitor is running at. That's great. And then after this, you have another setting, which you would be best checking the Hyprland wiki for, but it's not actually that important, so we can just leave it out. Now, on this last argument over here, that's basically auto. Right now, this is actually standing in for scale. So by default, the scale is most likely going to be blown up right out of proportion. So the text and the images, whatever you see on screen, basically is going to be very, very big. Now, unless you change the resolution or you do something related to the monitor settings, Hyprland is not going to know that it needs to scale down whatever you're seeing. So you might just have to remove this auto, okay, remove the auto scale and then turn it to 1. If you turn that to 1, as you can see right now, there's no change, but by default, it's going to be something like 1.75 or even 1.5, actually 1.5. Yeah, it might be something like this. But if you don't want that, if you just want the authentic experience without using fractional scaling that you can on Wayland, just make sure to pick 1. And also, if you're going to rather prefer something like the fractional scaling that you see on Windows, where you have sizes like 125%, 150%, 175%, you can put those over here, but then you have to keep in mind that certain Wayland applications, basically apps that are not fully on Wayland, but just run through a compatibility layer, those apps are going to look very blurred and just broken, and they're not going to play well with fractional scaling. So it's a trade-off that you're going to have to make. Best thing would be to just leave it at 1 and then turn up the font size of whatever apps that you're using so you can still see whatever's going on without bothering the Wayland applications. So that is what we're going to do in terms of the monitor settings and the Hyprland config for now. Now, once we have installed this, we need to install a couple more things. Now, what else is it? So first, we've installed Hyprland and Kitty itself. That's how we're here. Next thing we need to install is a wallpaper daemon. Now, there are a couple of different options we can pick for this. We can either use SWWW or Hyperpaper. And by the way, if you haven't already installed Yay is an AUR helper on Arch Linux, which is going to help you install a bunch of packages. And it basically has the same functionality as Pacman, but then it also allows you to access the AUR. The Arch user repository, which is a huge, goddamn, really big collection of apps that the community of Arch Linux has created. So if you want to access this, you just have to install Yay. It's pretty simple. You can find instructions for it on the GitHub. But actually, for installing the apps that I'm going to tell you, you don't even have to use an AOR helper. You can just use something like Pacman. So Pacman-S, you can pick SWWW if you want transitions, if you want different wallpaper transitions. But if you plan on keeping a stationary wallpaper that doesn't change often, if at all, then Hyperpaper is going to be best for you. I will show you how to set up both. So let's just install these both for now. Okay, so that's going to be for our wallpapers. Then after that, we have ZSH for our shell. So using the bash shell by default is not going to be the most fun. So we can actually make our shell look so much better, prettier, and more fun by using the Z shell. So we're going to be using that as our shell. Then after that, we have Rofi for the app launcher. If you've seen a bunch of my other videos, then you will know that whatever app launcher that I use when it comes to the grid app launcher, where I'm choosing between different desktop files, or whether I'm using the custom theme switcher, where I'm switching between different themes, Rofi is the backbone and backend for all of such functionality that's on my PC. So Rofi is going to be our app launcher for this particular purpose. Then after that, we have Waybar. Now, Waybar is going to be our status bar. We can also use something like Hyperpanel if you want to set that up. However, setting up Waybar is much simpler, and the more you get used to editing configs and whatnot, the easier it becomes. And as you start to climb the ranks of beginner ricer to intermediate ricer to advanced and even pro ricer, you're just going to have to deal with more and more config files anyway. So the sooner that you get used to it, the better. So that's why I will be teaching you how to rice Waybar as well in quite less time so that you don't have to spend too long on it. Okay, that's for our status bar. And after that, lastly, for the notifications, we're going to be using Sway NC. Now, Sway NC combines a lot of different aspects of a notification daemon into one. You have the notification panel itself. Along with that, you have an Empress player, media player. So basically, that's the part of the notification daemon which allows you to see what music or what media is currently playing, so that it allows you to do that as well. And not just that, of course, you also have the actual notification part. So all in all, Sway NC is a pretty good candidate for being a notification daemon. It's what I personally use, and you can make it look really cool, and you can make it have really slick animations, which of course is the whole point of using a compositor like Hyprland. So let's install this, and once that's done, in the next video, we will be configuring all of these apps. So sudo pacman-s. Let's just install all of this. There you go. Most of it is already installed. And I forgot to tell you one thing. Here's a pro tip. If you're ever installing a bunch of packages that you know some of them are already on your PC, you can pass in the -- needed flag to only install the packages that aren't already installed. So in my case, most of these apps are already installed. So the only thing that would be installed would be Hyperpaper. So I can just press Y or just hit enter, and it's going to work. You can just ignore this. You can ignore this because it doesn't really matter, right? But anyway, as you can see, it works out successfully and it's all done. Now, after that, what else is it we need to do? We need to configure the wallpaper, of course. So let's open this. Actually, let's make it a bit easier for you to see and increase the scale. So we'll go into Hyprland's config file, increase the scale to 1.25 so that you can see things a bit clearer. Okay, now that that's done, let's go ahead and actually change the wallpaper. So in order to change the wallpaper, we're going to have to pick a good one. And that is going to be done, hold on, let's close this, by going to a website called Wallhaven. So all of the pro ricers that you see on r/UnixPorn, all of us get most of our wallpapers from here. Now, this is a good place to find random wallpapers that are part of a bunch of different aesthetics. You can find them inside of the top list. However, okay, let me actually just show you what the wallpapers here look like. So as you can see, they're more anime styled. And here you have a couple ones of nature as well. So they look pretty good. Apart from that, if you just want a minimal plain background wallpaper that you can use, that you don't mind changing ever so often, right? If you don't change it too often, then you can just look for an abstract minimal wallpaper, and you'll find plenty of them in the images section of whatever search engine you use. So we can just take a look at the images. And here, as you can see, you will find plenty of them. Now, we can also look for a dark version, a dark abstract minimal wallpaper. Should be able to find lots of different ones here. So you can pick this one if you wanted to. And if not, you can pick something else. But the one that we saw earlier just then actually looks pretty good. So just we'll go ahead and keep this. So let's visit this wallpaper. And here, we'll just go ahead and get the wallpaper itself. So we can choose between different wallpapers if you just wanted to change your mind. But let's see if we can find the same one. Okay, there it is. Just click here and scroll down. Should be able to find download somewhere here. Okay, now I have gotten the wallpaper. And now that that's done, there's, again, as I just mentioned, there are two ways in which you can change your wallpaper. Either if you want transitions, you're going to have to use SU or SWWW. Same thing, right? You have to either use that or use Hyperpaper. In order to make things simple and still keep it fun, I'm going to be using SU for the transition part, as well as just streamlining the theming aspect of Hyprland, so I'm going to be using that. In order to set that up, well, it's pretty simple. You just have to start the daemon. And once you start the daemon, as you can see, it's already running. But because you haven't actually passed any arguments to the daemon itself, it's not going to do anything. So what we can do here is just send this to the background with ampersand disown. There you go. And here we should be able to close this app and still have the daemon running in the background. We also need to add this to our auto start. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's scroll down to auto start. Should be somewhere here. There you go, auto start. We just have to add exec once equals swww. There you go. Once that's done, okay, now we actually need to get the daemon. So once we execute the daemon, we should be good to go. Okay, now after that's done, we just need to choose a wallpaper. So img, you can just choose downloads and this. And there you go. The transition actually happened pretty quickly, so quickly in fact that you couldn't see it, but it happened regardless. So if you wanted to switch between different wallpapers, all you'd have to do is just pass in the transition type and you'd be able to change that as well. So now we have a wallpaper. Next thing we need to do is just set up Waybar as well. So let's just get Waybar, the bare minimum of Waybar up and running. Let's do that with, okay, so Waybar is already installed, which means we need to just get the configuration file up and running. Even if we don't do that, we should be able to get Waybar's default config working, like so. So if we type Waybar, this is the default Waybar config that you see here. It works for now, so let's send this to the background as well. Now watch what happens when I close this terminal window. It closes, and as you can see, it doesn't kill Waybar automatically because the app has been forked to the background, as we say. Now we also need to make sure to go here, go into the auto start, and execute Waybar once as well. So exec once equals Waybar. And after that's done, we should have it configured. Now, all that's well and good. Let's see what else we can configure next. So right now, the app launcher that I just used over here was Rofi. If you haven't already installed Rofi, you're not going to be able to access this. However, we have a better replacement, and that is going to be Rofi. So Rofi-show drun should be able to get this exact same thing over here. We can also run Rofi theme switcher and switch the theme between a couple of different pre-built ones. But we can do that. We can do the configuration part later on. We can just set up the bare minimum right now. So config Hyprland. Let's go down to this part over here. So let's look for Rofi. So this is the menu variable over here. We can replace Rofi with Rofi-show drun. And now if we run mod key and r, this is what you see. Great. All that's done. So we've installed ZSH as well. Let's configure that too. Just need to change shell. So chsh means change shell. -s. What shell do you want to change to? That's going to be bin ZSH. So it changes for the current user. Enter password. Shell changed. You're gonna have to log out and log back in for the changes to take place. Okay. And after that, we just need to execute sway-nc. So sway-nc, if you run that, it's already running. Now, because this is a different user, you're going to get this error. Otherwise, you're not going to get this error. So let me show you what it's actually supposed to look like. Okay, and now if I run sway-nc, it's already running, so we might just have to kill it, kill all-9 sway-nc. Just keep repeating the process till sway-nc finally dies, because it just doesn't want to die. Now after that, sway-nc, there you go. Now you don't see anything, but watch what happens when I actually try and send a notification. So the way you send notifications is using notify send. So if I send notify hello, this is what you see, hello. Now there is a way to activate the panel as well with sway-nc. That's going to be done. Let's check the help in order to figure out what does it. So man sway-nc, should be able to find it in there. And sway-nc, scroll down. Okay, it's going to be somewhere in here. Okay, we just have to look for it. And okay, even if it's not here, it's something pretty simple that we can figure out later on, but that is going to be it for configuring our notifications. That's done. Of course, we need to send this to the background like any other app. There you go, send it to the background and auto start it as well. So we'll go back to, okay, let's just go back again. nvim config hyprland.conf, auto start, scroll down here, and we need to add exec once equals sway-nc. So once you add that, next time you launch Hyprland, everything is already going to be auto started, and this is the environment that you will be able to see. So we've got pretty much all the basics set up. right? We've got everything covered, but we just have to configure it, which is what we will be doing in the next video. So in this video, right now, we've set up our wallpaper, we've set up Waybar, Kitty, that's just done by default, CSH, Rofi, and SwayNC. So all of that's done. In the next videos, we're going to be configuring each of these apps to make them look pretty, to make them even more functional, and to get the most out of our setup. And by the way, if you want to learn how to make a full setup, right? Exactly what I'm teaching you over here, but not just in 1 hour, but over 10 hours of content where I teach you exactly the step-by-step process that I use in order to think about how to make new configs and how to actually go about making them without breaking a single thing, and how to future-proof your setup and a hell of a lot more. You can go ahead and click the first link in the description and check out Hyper-Accelerator. It's a program where I've compiled my 4 years of Hyprland racing knowledge into one place that's over 10 hours, so that you can just download whatever I've learned over the past 4 years into your own brain, so that you don't have to go through the same mistakes and struggles that I did. So if you're a fan of just skipping all the bad stuff and heading straight to the good stuff, just learning other people's knowledge as fast as possible, right, without having to go through all of the scars yourself, just picking them up, then you can go ahead, click the first link in the description, check out Hyper-Accelerator. Here is where we left off last time. Now, today, what we're going to be doing is configuring our terminal along with our shell. So if I open our very beautiful terminal over here, we're using Kitty, and there's a couple of reasons why I've personally preferred this terminal compared to Alacrity, even though I was a die-hard Alacrity fan in the past. And that mainly just has to do with font rendering. If I open Alacrity and compare Alacrity's font rendering to Kitty's, you'll notice that actually, hold on, let me zoom in so you can see it much clearer. Kitty's font rendering just seems a bit smoother and rounded. Not quite sure how to describe it, but if you've used macOS, you'll get what I'm talking about. If I type something like hello over here and hello over here, you'll notice that Alacrity's text rendering is just way too sharp. Like it's too sharp. It's kind of like taking a sword or a knife and then just shoving it down your throat and then just pulling that knife all the way down until the knife basically exits the other side of your body. It's quite a gory scenario to imagine, but that's what this feels like. It just looks sharp. That's the best way for me to describe it. But Kitty, on the other hand, the font, although still quite sharp and really good looking, it's not as sharp as Kitty, as Alacrity, I mean. So that's the personal reason as to why I use Kitty, along with, of course, a bunch of other performance benefits and whatever other features that Kitty implements compared to Alacrity. So that is personally why I use it. Now, what we're going to be doing is configuring Kitty, because this is the terminal that Hyprland expects you to use by default as well, as is made evident by the fact that it is required for you to install the Kitty terminal and not the Alacrity one before you start Hyprland. Now, enough with that, let's just get started. So let's open our Kitty config file, which is going to be inside config, kitty.conf. If it's not there, you're just going to have to create it. So create the file, and it's going to be empty by default. Now, let's just make sure the folder actually exists. So config, Kitty, yes, it's there, it's just empty. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do is change the font itself. So let's change the font family to a different font. I have installed a couple of different font families, especially nerd fonts, because they're going to be required. Nerd fonts are basically fonts which have been patched to include certain icons that can be used in various different scenarios, whether it be inside of your Waybar or inside of your text editor or inside of your terminal itself, in order to show you different icons based on the shell that you're using. Nerd fonts are really useful and versatile and give you a lot of functionality with basically monospaced fonts that have icons patched into them. Because of that reason, you know what? I'll do you a favor and use the JetBrains Mono Nerd Font Mono. Okay, now this font, as you can see here, this is the font that you're most likely going to have seen already in pretty much every other video that's out there. This is the most popular font. You know what? No, let's not use this font. Instead, I'll use Geist Mono Nerd Font Mono, because that font looks good as well. There you go. This is what I use on my main machine. I'll be using that here as well. So that is the font. Make sure to pick a good font that you like. You can go over to nerdfonts.com and choose whichever font that you want from there. So let's close out this stuff. Let's go to nerdfonts.com. And over here, you should be able to find a list of fonts that you can choose. So go to font downloads. You can choose your favorite font from here. You can download it and install the font if you're on Arch Linux, or if you're on Arch Linux, most likely the package is going to be available in the AUR, so you can just look for whichever nerd font you want. Let's say Cascadia Cove. You just look for Cascadia Cove, and most likely you're going to find it as a nerd font. Now here you don't, so we'll just search for Cascadia, and there you go. TTF Cascadia Code nerd. This is the font that you're going to want to install if you're installing this font. So you just do that, get your favorite font, and put that as the first line here. So okay, after our font family is done, we'll just pick font size. The Geist Mono Nerd font, this goes best with a font size of 13, so you can choose that. Now if I open another terminal, 13 looks good. However, if I wanted to make it easier for you to see, then I could just increase that to 14. And by the way, if you want to update the config for any Kitty window that's already open, you just have to press Ctrl-Shift F5 and that's going to update it for you. So I can open another terminal. This is what I see. Fantastic. Now, after that's done, we then move on to disabling ligatures. Now, you can disable ligatures, yes. Now, what are ligatures? Ligatures are basically taking two glyphs, taking, let's say, the equals glyph and then the greater than symbol, and then putting them into one character like this. So if you have written math before, then most likely you will have noticed symbols like this, where if you put two greater than symbols together, they form into sort of a one greater than symbol along with a line that's over here. Okay, that's basically what a ligature is. It's just taking two glyphs, two characters, and merging them together to make them look as one so that the brain finds it an easier time interpreting it. That's it. If you don't want this ligature feature, you can actually disable this by typing disable ligatures yes. However, I actually do like it, so I'm going to keep it as no. Then after that, you have enable audio bell. This feature actually starts to get quite annoying. So what happens is if you have enable audio bell as yes, then every single time you press backspace at an empty prompt, okay, you're going to hear a hideous bell, which is just not fun at all. So if you want to avoid hearing that absolutely hideous bell, then you can just turn off the audio bell here. There's practically no benefit to having it, and if you've used tiling window managers in the past, if you've used BSPWM, i3 and whatnot, most likely you've used a terminal like URXVT, which means that you're not going to have fancy features like this anyway, which means that you're not going to notice whether it's there or not. So my suggestion to you, just please, for the love of God, if you like your ears, turn it off, because that bell is not fun to listen to. Then after that, shell is going to be ZSH. That's obvious because that's the shell that we're using here. Then after that, shell integration disabled. Now, there's a reason for passing in shell integration disabled, and that reason, let's actually take a look at it inside of Kitty's config. So if we look for Kitty config file, actually get the full config file, we should find it inside of that. So if we look for shell integration, we should be able to find it here. Okay, so this is an option in Kitty config. So if we scroll down all the way till here, yeah, so this is basically going to enable shell integration on supported shells. So this enables features such as jumping to previous prompts, browsing output of previous command in a pager, so on and so forth. This also has something to do with your cursor. So if you want a normal cursor with just a block and no other fanciful effects, you're going to have to disable shell integration. Then after that, we're going to, of course, change the cursor shape to be block. And if we reload, there you go. Hold on. Reload. Okay. Let's close and reopen. There you go. We get our fantastic block that is not yet blinking, which is good. Then URL style. If you want, you can change the URL style to be curly. By default, it's going to be something like this. So we go to google.com. This is what it looks like. Okay, it's just an underline, but if you want a curly URL style, you can do that. If we reload and hover, yeah, this is curly, as you can see. Then after that, we have a bunch of window settings that we're going to have to set for Kitty. So remember, window size is one of them, and you can set that to no. The reason why you want to set this to no is because if sometimes what can happen is Kitty opens with a particular window size and Hyprland takes a second in order to expand the Kitty window in order to fill whatever size that it has to fill. And because that takes probably a 0.1 or 0.5 seconds, you can actually see the difference between opening the window and it resizing. And so you just don't want that to happen, which means you're going to have to turn off remembering the window size so that the window size is dictated by Hyprland and not by the terminal itself. If for whatever reason you prefer opening the Kitty window in floating or any other reason, and you want to actually set a window width and window height, you can do that with initial window width. You can set it to something like 640 in pixels, or you can also use columns like 75C, or yeah, 75C for the columns and rows. But we'll just stick to pixels, so we'll make it 640 by 480. Then initial window height, we can pick 480 here, 480. Then after that, we have window padding width. So this is just going to be the padding that you see on the sides of the window. So you can set that to something like 30 if you prefer a fanciful effect. As you can see, that's quite a lot. Or if you want to tone it down a little, you can go to 20 and just find your sweet spot. So here, 20 looks pretty good, so we'll keep it at that. After the padding, we have cursor blink interval. This interval is going to dictate how often the cursor is going to blink. If you don't want the cursor to blink, of course, if you want it to be like just a solid cursor, then you can set that to 0 and then the cursor will not blink. Now here we get to a bit more of the appearance style. What we're going to do here is change background opacity to 0.8. The reason why we do this is so that we can get Hyprland's absolutely fantastic blur working. Now 0.80 should be the same thing, but now if we just close and reopen, okay, here it still doesn't seem to comply. So let's see what's going on. Background opacity just needs to be 0.80. Okay, maybe we need to close this window as well. So we'll close this. Okay, no, it actually did comply. As you can see here, the background opacity is working. It's just that the wallpaper seems to be one that doesn't exactly show it properly. So let's go back to our config file here. Great. Now let's open a new terminal. There you go. Now, after that, we'll have to change a couple of settings related to the scroll bar. Now, what I mean is if I show you the, okay, let's just run something like NeoFetch. There you go. You see NeoFetch here. Now, the issue with this terminal is you're going to find a scroll bar whenever you try and resize the window. So let's say I try and resize the window, you're going to see a scroll bar over here, which just looks, again, ugly, and it completely ruins the look of any fetch tool that you're using. And if you want to shrink the window so that you can only see the fetch, it completely ruins the look. And so we're going to avoid that by changing the opacity of the scroll bar to be just completely transparent, so you can't see it at all. So we'll do that using scroll bar handle opacity. You want to turn that to 0. Scroll bar track opacity, you want to turn that to 0 as well. Then scroll bar track hover opacity. Scroll bar track hover opacity, you want to turn that to 0 as well. Okay, so that is for the scroll bar stuff. Now after that, let's just put all of these in order, really satisfy our OCD, make it look really nice. Let's push this all the way to the edge. There you go. Perfect. Looks slick and sexy. Amazing. Now, confirm window. Okay, it's actually confirm OS window close. So confirm OS window close. If you notice, set this to no. If you notice, what happened earlier was every single time you wanted to close an application, it would ask us for that. What was it? It was the confirmation box. If you want to turn that confirmation box off, you just have to confirm OS window close. You want to set that to no, which is not going to give you, okay, hold on, okay, it says 0. My bad. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Perfect. And actually gave us a chance to show you this. So if you don't want this box, which gets annoying after some time, you just have to turn that off. So put a 0 over here and we're good. Reopen. And now even if we try and close an app, it has no problem closing without giving us a warning. Then after that, lastly, we're going to deal with performance settings. And the only performance setting that we're going to be messing around with Kitty today with Kitty is going to be the sync to monitor. This is basically VSync. And if we turn off VSync, then the refresh rate of the terminal is not going to be limited by your monitor's refresh rate. So if your monitor's refresh rate is capped at something like 60 Hertz, your terminal is not going to be capped at 60 Hertz, which means that input delay is going to be decreased. And also the terminal is just going to run at higher FPS. So sync to monitor, turn that off if you want better performance, and that's it. That is going to be it for our Kitty config file. Awesome. Now that we have done that, there's still one last thing to do, which is customize our shell itself. Now, how will we do that? Simple, we just have to use omyzsh. So let's go over to our browser, go over to omyz.sh. Once you're here, you want to click on omyzsh, install omyzsh, and install it via curl. So you can triple click in order to highlight an entire line of text. This triple click thing, by the way, it works no matter what app you're using. So if I show you as an example, you can triple click here as well to highlight this entire paragraph. Now you can do this for anything else. So if you want to highlight an entire line, to copy, triple click, Control C, and of course go here and paste it inside the terminal. So that is going to clone omyzsh, which is a plugin framework for ZSH. Here, there seems to already be some ZSHRC stuff. That's fine. You can just overwrite it. Now, most likely you're not going to see this because as soon as you log out and log back in, okay, there are chances that it might not show you if you have a ZSHRC already. But even if you do see this message, you just have to put in a Y over here. And that's it. So this is what our prompt looks like. But we're still not done. We have to get power level 10K. So let's go to power level 10K. You just want to install that and get a really minimalist prompt that looks good. So let's go here, installation, omyzsh. You want to clone this repository. That's it. Now, if you're in China, you can use this. Users in China can use the official mirror for a faster download. But even if you're in China, you can just copy and paste this, and it's not going to take more than 30 seconds. Then you want to go into your ZSHRC, which is actually .zshrc. Here you want to change the theme to power level 10K / power level 10K. Okay, close and reopen. It's super C to close, by the way. Super C to close a window, super Q to open a terminal. We still haven't customized the Hyprland key bindings. We'll do that later. Now, you just have to answer the questions here in order to fix power level 10K configuration, or create a new one rather. Yes, it looks like a diamond. Yes, lock. Yes, upward arrow. It's pointing at 1. Yes, no overlap. And here, this is where you can choose and customize your prompt style. So if you wanted something like the ones you usually see in my videos, then you just have to pick pure, then pure, or whichever was the first one, whatever the name was. Character set, Unicode, 8 colors, show current time, no, prompt height, 2 lines, disconnected, left frame, and let's see, white, color, sparse, spacing, icons, you want few icons, concise, enable a transient prompt. Yes, as you can see, transient prompt makes things look more minimal. Beautiful. Verbose, yes, you can just set instant prompt mode to verbose and apply changes. That's it. So that is how you can get a prompt that looks like this. Now, we might actually have to go into Kitty's config and increase 20 to something like 30 so that it looks better. There you go, looks much better. Or maybe even something like 27. 27. Pick a real nice odd number. There you go. Perfect. Absolutely beautiful. Now, after this, what else is it? We've basically configured everything. The only thing left is getting some colors for our beautiful terminal. Now, you can choose whichever colors that you want. I'm going to be picking one dark. So we just have to search for one dark kitty theme, and you will find a GitHub repository of lots of kitty themes. So here you can click on this one by Dexpota and click on themes here, find the kitty theme you want. So you can look for one dark, there you go, onedark.conf. And here you want to copy this part, copy all the colors and paste them into your kitty config file. So here, go at the end, you can put a comment that says colors below and just paste the colors. Now, if you reload, there you go, you instantly see a difference. Now, if we do something like type in neofetch, you're going to be able to see the beautiful colors over here. But this doesn't quite look like one dark, or maybe it does. You can pick something else if you don't like one dark. There's pencil dark. You can pick whichever one that you want, but we're going to be keeping one dark for now because it seems to be wallpaper agnostic. This is the theme that the Atom text editor that you used to use way back in the day. But yeah. Now, along with this, let's do one last change, which is changing the border color on Hyprland itself. So let's go to config hyprland.conf. Here you want to look for border and change the border color so that it can be much lighter and different. So active border, let's keep something minimal. See what we can pick. Okay, we can pick a different color, probably something darker. Let's see, what color can we choose? This is very interesting. Okay, let's pick blue here. Okay, we'll pick any random color. Let's pick this, color 1. Okay, now we just paste. Doesn't work, of course, because we have to pass in the alpha value. So let's put in AA here. Okay, seems to be right. Let's pick another one. Color 3. Just guessing with these, you can pick whichever one you want. Okay, orange. Come on, blue, 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 blue. Come on. Okay, let's see. Did we get blue? Is it the same thing? Okay, no. Blue. Come on. Why? What's going on? Ugh. Serious. We're gonna have to go into the config file. Nope, can't see the color anywhere. Come on, which color is blue? God damn it. Let's try color 6. Oh, we can just use NeoFetch. Never mind. Okay, you see what I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to get the colors right. You can pick whichever color you want. Come on. There you go. Perfect. Blue. Looks good. And that should do it for changing our Hyprland window border colors as well. There you go. So what we did today was configuring our shell to look pretty clean and slick, along with changing our Hyprland window borders and changing our kitty's terminal settings as well. That's it. And by the way, if you want to learn how to make a full Hyprland setup with all of the different little bells and whistles that you could think of, like custom theme switchers and wallpaper switchers, so on and so forth, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out HyperAccelerator. It's a program where I teach you exactly how you can take something like Hyprland, which seems to be just another Wayland compositor, and completely transform it into a desktop environment along with all of the other things that I mentioned earlier. So if you want to know how to do that for yourself, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out the program. The launcher we're going to be configuring today is called Rofi, and this is what it looks like by default. So if you just run Rofi-show drun without any other options or any other theme, by default it's going to pick the Grovebox Lite theme, which is what you see here. And of course the font has not been customized either, so we're using the default monospaced font, depending on whichever font that you install by default. Now, we are going to be changing that, and the best way to do that is for us to get a bunch of themes that have been made already so that we don't have to go about messing around with Rofi's theme engine and making our own themes. We can do that later, but for now, it's best if we just get a theme that's already been made. And luckily for us, there have been made multiple themes by this gentleman over here. So if we go to 1090x, here, let's go to this place. What do you call it? It was Rofi themes, or actually just Rofi. Now in this repository, which you can get to if you just look for Rofi themes, GitHub as well, should be able to find one by Adi over here, somewhere here. Okay, if you don't, just go over here, this guy's repo, Rofi, and you should be able to see that it is indeed a huge collection of Rofi-based custom applets, launchers, and power menus. Now the one that we are most interested in this repo is going to be the launchers. So if you take a look inside of files, you're going to find applets, colors, images, so on and so forth. You're going to find a lot of folders corresponding to the different functions that this particular repo implements for Rofi. What we're going to be doing is cloning this and using the launchers for ourselves. So let's go over to our terminal here, and then we'll just type in git clone and paste in this repo URL. Now make sure that you have git installed. Okay, already make sure that it's installed by using a-s or pacman-s git. Once you have git installed, you just have to clone Rofi, and it shouldn't take too long. However, you can also speed up the cloning of any Git repository by passing in depth equals 1. What this does is basically only gets the first commit that you see here, not the first commit, but the latest commit, instead of getting the entire commit history, which would take quite some time. So if we just clone with depth 1, it's not going to take that long. Like, look, instead of cloning 1,793 objects, you're only cloning 460, and so the retrieval of those objects is going to be much faster, 3.41 megabytes per second. Now, if I ls, that's the downloads folder, and you're also going to see Rofi. And here's another thing that you might not have noticed. Now, by default, if you just log into Arch Linux, something of this sort might happen. So if I show you Thunar, this is a file manager. Right now, we have only 2 folders, but by default, whenever you use a desktop environment, something like GNOME or KDE or whichever other desktop environment, you're going to have many more folders than this. So in order for you to get those folders, make sure you have xdg user does installed. Okay, xdg user does. I have already installed it, so I'm not going to install it right now. Once you have this, you just have to run the command xdg user does update. And once you run that, all of the different folders should automatically be populated here, like desktop, documents, downloads, so on and so forth. Okay, now once you run that command, as you can see, it works, everything works properly, and you should get your folders. Amazing. Now, if we type ls, there you go. We should be able to see the different folders here. Now, let's go into Rofi, and inside Rofi, you don't want to run the setup.sh file, although you can if you prefer doing that. We're just going to be directly copying the files that we need over from files into our main.config/Rofi directory. So let's do that. Let's cd into files, and here, the main ones that we're going to need is config.rasi, the colors folder, as well as the launchers folder. So let's get that. cp-r. -r, when you're copying with cp, stands for recursive. So copy the folder as well as all of the files inside of a particular folder. And if you don't pass this when you're copying a folder, it's just going to fail. So make sure to pass this in. cp-r, you want to get the colors, config, and launchers. That's it. If you want, you can take the scripts as well, but we're only going to require these 3. If you want to mess around with the other files that you can see here with the launchers, applets, and power menus, you're welcome to do so. Perhaps I'll make a video on that in the future, but for now, we'll just get a theme that looks much better than this one up and running first. So let's do that. Let's copy this to config Rofi. If we ls config Rofi, there's nothing there, so we'll have to create a directory first. So make directory config Rofi. There you go, done. Now we just have to copy this over to config Rofi. There you go. Now let's show you the different themes that you can pick once you have actually installed the config files as we just did. Now, inside of the previews, as you can see, with type 1, you can choose these many themes. You can choose between these many themes. Type 2 as well, this is what they all look like, so on and so forth. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be picking style, let's see here, which one's the best. Okay, let's take style 2 so that you can see what it looks like. Type 2, style 2. How exactly do you go about implementing that? Well, let's go to config Rofi. Control L to clear the screen, by the way, instead of typing clear to clear the screen every single time. If you press Control L on your keyboard inside of a terminal or inside of a TTY, it's going to clear your screen. Now let's type ls, and if you want, you can also type ls-l. That just lists everything inside of a list. It looks better, and actually, we can put this inside of an alias. So if we go to zshrc, we look for alias, we should find that there are a bunch of alias options here. Now an alias in a shell is basically a substitute for a particular command. So if I type ls, I can make it execute ls-l instead. Now if I open and type ls, there you go. It just types in ls-l. But we can take this one step further and replace ls with an app called exa. The way you install exa is by typing a-s exa, or you can even install it using pacman. And exa is basically a better ls. Now if I type ls, there you go. There's syntax highlighting, there's different colors, so on and so forth. So exa just looks much better. We will be using that instead. Now, if you want your changes in zshrc to be reflected inside of a terminal already open, you have to source zshrc. Once you source it, type ls, there you go. That's how it works. Now let's go to config.rasi and let's see what's waiting for us here. Right now, this is basically the bare minimum config file, I believe. We don't have to mess around with this. Instead, we go to launchers and we go to type 2, and inside of type 2, we'll find there's a launcher.sh, and there are the different styles that we can pick from here. So if we open launcher.sh, and let's say we want type 2, style 2, right? Type 2, just change theme to style 2, write the changes, and now if we /launcher.sh, Remember, you don't have to actually make this executable because it already is by the green text that you see here and also the X symbol, read, write, execute for this particular user. So we execute launcher.sh. This is what we see over here. Beautiful. However, there is one more thing that we have to configure. This works, which means that we have to just set this up as our key binding inside of our Hyprland config file. So let's do that. Config hyprland.conf. So let's go here, go over to Rofi for our keybind. Okay, menu is Rofi-show drun. Instead of this, we can just remove this line, or actually let's go over to menu. Let's find where that is. And instead of executing this menu variable, we can do this instead. So instead of executing that, we can just execute config Rofi launchers type 2 launcher.sh. So once you type that in, if I type mod r, as you can see, it automatically opens the launcher that you saw before. Now, let's also change the terminal key bindings and a bunch of other key bindings while we're at it. So main mod is super, that's okay. You can change it to alt as well if you want, if the super key is too far out to the left on your keyboard, but we'll just keep it super for now. And super return is going to be our terminal. So if I press super return, terminal opens. Then kill active, that's going to be mod w. That's what it used to be on BSPWM by default. Okay, then mod m for exit, file manager, floating. Let's make this mod d. So to execute the d menu, actually, you know why this is mod d? Here's a little tidbit from the past. So the reason why most people have their executable, like their run launcher set to mod d, is because d used to stand for d menu. So whenever we used window managers like DWM and BSPWM back in the day, we always used to use D menu as our application launcher, which is why we just set the application launcher to be mod D, which would execute D menu up at the top over here. Little blast from the past for you there. Now, once that's done, this is for pseudo tiling if you want. Okay, yeah, pseudo tiling and toggle splitting between the dwindle layouts, or actually just toggling between different modes inside of the same layout. So let's close this. And with that, we've basically configured our launcher. Now we can still change the font and a bit of the colors if you want to. So let's do that. Let's go inside shared and let's change the colors. So right now we're using the one dark colors, which is perfect because that's the theme we're already rocking. As you can see, colors match up perfectly. And after that, we can also change shared fonts.rasi. Here, let's change the font. We can change it to something like JetBrains Mono Nerd Font 10 or 11. And if you do that, there you go. But notice that there's an icon that's messed up over here. And this also ties into the reason why, if you remember in the last video where we configured our kitty config file, if I open that, there's a reason why I chose the mono variant of the default nerd font over here. And that's because nerd fonts have a couple of different variants. One is the default nerd font without the mono or the propo. Another is a nerd font mono variant. And then another one is the nerd font propo variant. So basically, just keep this in mind. There's no need to overcomplicate it too much. If you are using a nerd font inside of a terminal, make sure to use mono because that's going to adjust the size of the icons properly so that all of the icons line up in a perfect grid, in a perfect monospaced font. Okay, and if you're using a nerd font in a proportional context, as we say, which is basically to say anywhere outside of a terminal, whether it be inside of VS Codium or inside of Waybar or inside of Rofi, you want the text to be displayed properly. So make sure to put JetBrains Mono Nerd Font propo there and watch what happens. So right now this icon is a bit messed up, right? It's a bit cut off and it doesn't look good. Watch what happens as soon as I put in propo over there, write the changes. Ta-da! The icon size is fit properly because Rofi is a proportional context. Here, proportional context just basically means anywhere outside of a terminal where you're using only monospaced fonts. So you do that, choose whichever font that you want, a nerd font, and you should be good to go. You can also reduce the font or maybe even change the font to something like Geist Mono Nerd Font if you so preferred, like this, that also works. Or you could also choose a completely different font. If you were up for it, you could choose something like Adwaita Sans to make it more like this. You could also pick this font, looks pretty good, but again, you have this issue over here. So for that, you can actually implement a workaround, just to go into the style file itself and find the area that's affected by this little icon over here, which is going to be the search button. let's see here. So it's most likely going to be either the input bar. Okay, let's change the font of the input bar itself. We can change font to something like JetBrains Mono Nerd Font Propo 11. Okay, put a semicolon there, remove this, and now, okay, it's supposed to work, but basically, you're just supposed to put trial and error in order to figure out where it actually is. So let's put it inside of input bar. Now, okay, let's try this somewhere else. Inside of entry, put it there. There you go, it works, right? Propo 11 works. If we reduce the size to 10, there you go. But it only changes the font that's inside of the entry. It doesn't change the font that is going to be in the prompt. So in the message, this is the elements. Okay, this is the list view. Input bar prompt. There you go. So we'll put that there. And now if we, there you go. Perfect. Perfect. We have figured it out. Now, if you want to get the font looking properly over here, but you still want the rest of the app to be using the different font, as you can see here, just make sure to change the prompt font to be JetBrains Mono Nerd Font Proper, and then you should be good to go, as you can see here. Perfect. That's it. That is how you can configure Rofi to look absolutely fantastic, even without writing any of the themes yourself. Of course, if you want to switch to a different theme, all you have to do is just choose whichever style that you want. Let's say I wanted to pick something like style 10. I would just have to go into launcher.sh, change style 2 to style 10, and now, as you can see, this is style 10 of Rofi. Here's another pro tip, by the way. Go into your Hyprland config file, find Rofi, okay, and here put 2 bars at the end of the Rofi command, at the end of this exec command, and type in pkill Rofi. Now what this does is it basically acts as a toggle function. So previously, if you don't have this pkill Rofi, what's going to happen is anytime you press mod D over and over, it's not going to work. It'll basically just stay at the Rofi window that's open. But by adding this failsafe or this condition, if Rofi isn't already running, then kill it. If it is running, then if it isn't running, then run it. Okay, what you're doing is essentially creating a toggle. That's it. If you want this toggle functionality, just make sure to add that in. Quick pro tip for you. And that should be it. If you want to change between different types instead of different styles, just make sure to change your Hyprland config file. Okay, make sure to go to Rofi, go here and change type 2 to style type 1 or whichever type you want. And now you should see that it works. That's it. Now, because of the nature of the theme that we're currently using, it's one dark, which is also matching with Rofi's default theme, so we don't have to do any theming shenanigans, okay, which is perfect. But if you want to change the theme as well, you should be able to figure that out pretty easily. It should be somewhere here. But anyway, I will leave that to you so that you can figure it out on your own if you want to choose a different theme. And that is it for this video. If you want to learn how to make setups like this, by the way, this is just one part of what we're going to be doing inside of this series. And not just that, but if you want to learn how to make a custom theme switcher along with a wallpaper switcher and a hell of a lot more, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out Hyper Accelerator. It's a program with over 10 hours of video training where I show you exactly how you can take Hyprland and transform it from just another Hyprland compositor, Wayland compositor rather, and transform it into a desktop environment and much, much more. So if you want that, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out Hyper Accelerator. Let's get started with configuring Waybar. That's going to be our status bar. So let's open the terminal, make a config Waybar folder, and you got to go inside this config Waybar folder and make 2 files. So you can use the touch command in order to make a file that's going to be an empty file. So we're going to have to make 3 files actually. That's going to be config.jsonc, jsonc, style.css, and onedark.css, along with launch.sh. Let's do that as well. So we should have 4 files here. Let's make the launch.sh file executable because it's going to be a script, and that's it. Now, we'll start with the simplest thing to write first, and then we'll work our way up to the configs of Waybar itself. So launch.sh is going to be the simplest thing, and by the way, you can use tab to autocomplete. We should have set up the ZSH shell, which means autocomplete is going to be working. If not, it works in any other shell as well. Just press tab right at the end of anything that you're about to type, and autocomplete will take over. Now, you want to type in shebang bin bash. That's how you pronounce this thing, by the way. This is a hashtag, and this is a bang, so we call them shebang. Okay, that's the line together. Here, basically, what we're telling the shell is we're using the bash shell in order to interpret whatever other stuff is going to come inside of the file later on. That's it. Now, after that, the only purpose that this script is going to have is to serve as a launchpad for our Waybar. So we're going to, first of all, this script is going to be used for reloading Waybar whenever we press a button so that we can see our config being reloaded in real time. So we type kill all -9 Waybar first. And once we do that, that's going to kill Waybar, basically just eliminate every single shred of it. If I show you that in action, kill all -9 Waybar, there you go, Waybar disappears. Now, on the other hand, if I type Waybar ampersand, disown, okay, there's actually an error here because we're using the Waybar config, but then nothing's in there, so we'll just leave this for now. We'll fix it later in just a second, but basically that's what kill all -9 Waybar does, just gets rid of it. Then after that, if you type Waybar ampersand, what this is going to do is basically execute Waybar and then detach it from this script so that even if we close the terminal or even if the script isn't currently running in an open terminal, it continues to run in the background. This is basically known as forking a process, which is Waybar, to the background. That's it. So if we, okay, it's already made executable. Now if we try and launch.sh, there you go. It says no process found because Waybar isn't currently running. We're going to fix that by introducing a config into config.jsonc. So let's go in here and, okay, now just follow what I'm doing. We're going to copy and paste a couple of different things from the wiki whenever we have to, but otherwise just follow whatever I'm doing right here. Don't click around anywhere else. Don't get distracted. You know, all that stuff, right? Focus and just type exactly what I'm typing over here so that one, you understand what's going on, and two, you start to get muscle memory for this type of stuff so that whenever you try and make new setups, okay, this just comes as easily to you as drinking water. Now, let's first of all open with a bunch of braces. Actually, let's make this easier and use an editor like VS Code. Now, if you haven't installed VS Code, it's pretty simple. You can get it using an AUR helper like Yay. Install Yay with whatever installation instructions are available for Yay online. Make sure to get Yay because it's very important when you're using Arch. Right, get Yay, then install VS Code bin, and get VS Code bin marketplace. So get these two things, and once you've installed them, you should be able to execute VS Code, the Wayland version. Once you do that, you should see something like this. Now, by default, the Waybar folder is not going to be opened. I have opened it previously, which is why you see it here. Now, let's go into config.jsonc and let's start doing our stuff. The first thing you want to do is open a bunch of curly braces, like so. Now, inside of those curly braces, we're going to start putting in keys, as we call them in JSON, key value pairs. The first thing is going to be position. The position is going to be bottom, so that if any menu, like let's say I click on this go menu, and the pop-up menu actually ends up exceeding the limits of the window, I can actually see it and the bar isn't covering it. So we'll make position bottom. Then after that, we'll add margin top 15 or 18, whichever one is, your preference. You can pick whichever one. Then after that, we're going to start adding in the modules. So modules left, this is going to be an array that contains the different modules we're going to be using. And for this minimal Waybar purpose, I'm going to be picking clock and Hyprland/workspaces. Now, nothing actually works right now because we haven't actually defined what each of the modules do, but that's no problem. Just follow along with what I'm doing and we will get there. Then module center is going to be the tray. Okay, it's going to be the tray. The tray is basically the system tray. So if you've used GNOME or KDE, you'll know what that is. Then modules right. So you go here, and this is where the bulk of our modules are going to be. Now in here, we have pulse audio. We have pulse audio, and then let's make this a comma. It is. Now we have pulse audio, then you have network. You also have battery because I'm on a laptop. And then we have lastly custom notification. Now this is going to serve as our notification icon so that we can click on it and check out our notifications. We're actually going to be setting up the notifications in the next video, but we'll lay the groundwork for it for Waybar right now. So let's just separate this to make it clearer. There you go, put in a comma. That's it. Now we have laid down the groundwork and the foundation for each of the different modules, as you can see here. Now here is where we go over to the wiki in order to copy a bunch of stuff. Now let's go to Waybar wiki, and here I already have Waybar's wiki open, and here I have the modules, the workspaces module opened, but let's start from the beginning. So let's get clock first. So we'll click on clock here. Make sure to go to this URL first, the wiki URL, then you can find clock under pages. Okay, now scroll all the way down. You should be able to find a very simple, not this, but this, very simple general clock over here. But if you want a calendar, you can do that. You can just copy this thing over here, and then you'll be able to get this calendar functionality just by hovering over the module. You can also show a full date on hover, or you can show in the clock tooltip a bunch of different stuff. So let's just get the simplest thing because we're working on a minimal Waybar config. Okay, let's copy this. Control C to copy and paste, of course. Now here, you paste here. Control Shift I to format. This is why I asked you to get VS Codium, because it makes formatting so much easier. You don't have to go ahead and manually mess with any of the lines. So that's why. Then after you do that, as you can see, all of the different modules have been formatted accordingly. Now, if we just write and reload, okay, it's actually, okay, we have to set up the reload key binding in Hyprland as well. So let's do that. Let's go to config hyprland.conf, again, tab to autocomplete. Make sure to go to key binding, so binding, it's case sensitive, so binding here. Now what you want to do is make sure that you have this line enabled. So mod R in my case is going to launch this Waybar scripts launch.sh script. So if I press mod key and R, it should reload, but because it doesn't, there seems to be an issue. Now let's see what that is. It should be pretty simple to diagnose just in one. Okay, there you go. It works. So this is actually position. My bad. I thought it was layer, but it's position. So we'll do this. Close. Okay, we're going to have to kill all -9 Waybar. Okay, Waybar. Let's run the script again. And there you go. Waybar comes out on top. That's good. As you can see, the clock module is already working. That is great. Now, the only thing that isn't is the key binding. So let's see what's going on here. Ah, that's right. Because we have to put launch.sh inside of a scripts folder. So let's do that. Let's put this inside of scripts. Put launch.sh in there. Yes, don't ask me again, move it there. And now if we press mod key and R, as you see, the reload thing is working. Great. Now after that, you can also hide onedark.css inside of a colors folder. So let's do that as well. Really start to clean things up. So we'll put onedark.css in there. Perfect. Okay, there you go. Now clock has been set up. We have a 12-hour clock, actually this is. So let's keep it that way. Looks more minimal. And after that, we're going to be working on the workspaces. So come to the right-hand side, make sure to look for workspaces here. You will find it somewhere here. Hyprland, actually. Hyprland. Then you want to scroll down, all the way down until you find the minimal config for Hyprland workspaces. Yeah, so this is with persistent workspaces. A persistent workspace basically just means the workspace is going to be displaying, okay, even if nothing is open on that particular workspace. So let's copy this and let's paste it after the clock. Paste it there, format, and by default, these are the icons that we see. Now you can either change the icons or you can just get rid of the icon part itself. Now if I reload, this is what you see. I can actually, just to show you what it looks like, put in the icon as well, and that's what that looks like. But we have no need for the icons, so we'll just get rid of that. You can also get rid of the format icons here if you're pretty sure you're not going to use the icons at all, but I'll just leave them in for now. You can change them if you want to. Okay, reload, this is what we see. Colors and all that still seem pretty messed up, which we're going to fix later on, but let's just get the rest of the modules over with. Now tray is going to be another thing, so let's find tray over here. Tray, just click on tray. You want to copy the minimal tray config. Right now this is what it looks like, so just copy that, paste it here. Now for the tray, depending on your display size, you're going to have to change the icon size and spacing and whatnot, depending on how you configure your own Waybar. So don't just copy me for every single setting. Do it for most, but then also make sure to add your own flavor to it so that it doesn't just become an imitation of my config, but it's actually yours. So if I reload, you can't see anything right now because there's nothing open that would make use of the tray, but that's a problem we can fix pretty easily. Okay, after the tray, we have pulse audio. So let's go configure that. Click on pulse audio here, copy the minimal config. So copy this and paste it after the tray. Now, one benefit of having planned out all the modules previously is that you can make each module, right? You can make each module appear one after the other in the exact same sequence as they appear inside of the arrays over here. So that's a little neat trick that you can use if you plan the modules beforehand. Really makes things more fun to troubleshoot and work around inside of the file. Okay, now if I reload, there you go. At least we see the icon. That's great. That's for Pulse Audio. Then after that, we have network. So let's go pull that from here, network. Now, chances are for the network module, if you're using Wi-Fi, your network, as in your network card or your network interface, is not going to be recognized, which means that we'll have to do just one command of work in order to figure out what our network interface is. So right now, if I reload, as you can see, it says WLP3S0 and not 2S0, because that's my network interface. Yours might be something like WLO1 or WLAN0, depending on what kind of network card you have. So just choose whichever one that you need. You can get to know that by typing in IP-C space A. That's going to give you your network card, WLP3S0. That's also what you see here, so you might not even have to type in this command. Let's put in WLP3S0, and I'm using the Vim extension in VS Codium, by the way, so that I don't have to click around with my mouse like a caveman. Although if you're not used to Vim, it's okay. Just make sure that you use a text editor that allows you to format, because that's the most important thing when it comes to your config file, so you don't go crazy just trying to format. Now if I reload, there you go. Perfect. You can see the Wi-Fi network that I'm connected to. Now let's get rid of the signal strength. Let's just keep the icon for now. Perfect. There you go. After that, lastly, we have battery and notification. Pretty easy to do. So for notification, we're going to have to go elsewhere, but for battery, we can finish up the work inside of Waybar's wiki itself. So battery, scroll all the way down, copy this battery module and paste it in here. Now battery, it says BAT2 here. You can just get rid of that and let it auto detect what battery you're using. There you go. It works. Interval is 60. So basically every 60 seconds you update. Now this actually might be in minutes, seconds, minutes, or hours. You're going to have to check, but just let the interval be 60 and don't worry about it. Here, okay, everything else looks good. Perfect. Now we're going to have to go over to this place, which is going to be Sway NC, yes, Sway Notification Center GitHub, because the last module that we're going to get for the notifications is going to be inside of here. So if we scroll all the way down, we should find a Waybar config over here, Waybar example, right? So copy this and paste it after here. Okay, want to get rid of the trailing comma, and now if we reload, there you go, we should see the notification icon, which works. Now, we installed Sway NC in the first video, which is why you're still able to see it whenever I press this button. If, however, you don't see anything, that's not a problem at all. Just make sure to pacman-s sudo pacman-s, right? Sudo pacman-s. That's going to be this thing. What was it? It was Sway NC. So just get this. And once you do that, you should also have auto started it, which we covered by typing in. So if we go to auto start somewhere here, right? We started the Wallpaper daemon, Waybar, as well as Sway NC. So now if I press this button here, you should see the notifications. And what an actual notification looks like is going to be like this. So notify send hello, hello. This is what notifications look like. Now if I go here, I actually cleared it. So okay, let's just let that disappear on its own. There you go. This is what a notification looks like. There. Now we have completed the config part of this thing. We have completed the config part of our bot. Next thing is just going to be styling. Okay, so let's do this. For the style, you want to import, okay, put in single quotes, colors/onedoc.css. This is going to be our colors file. This is actually the same framework that I use in order to switch between different themes in a custom theme switcher inside of my main machine. Okay, inside of my usual daily driver config, which if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know what they're like. But otherwise, if you want to learn how to make custom theme switchers and wallpaper switchers and get Hyprland to perform like a desktop environment and improve its performance and so much more, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out Hyper Accelerator. It's a program that has over 10 hours of training where I don't just speed through things because I got to get things done quickly, I teach you exactly what needs to be done step by step of click this button, type this command, so on and so forth, so that you can get your desired result without having to jump through 383 different YouTube tutorials and loopholes just to get a working setup. So if you want something like that, if you want something as fancy and cool as custom theme switchers, wallpaper switchers, and taking the colors from your wallpaper and applying that to Waybar and Sway NC and everything else, I teach you that in detail. So you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out Hyper Accelerator. Now, let's actually get to populating this one.css file. Now, how you do this is pretty simple, but let me show you. Okay. Now, what we want to do here is basically create a bunch of variables that are going to define what colors that this colors file holds. So in our case, it's going to be define color bg0, and it's going to be 292 C34. It's actually 282, so 282 C34. So this is going to be our background color. Now I'm going to fill this out for the rest of the colors. So just copy the colors or take a screenshot of this. You can take a partial screenshot, okay? And then you can pass it to any AI, and then it's going to give you the text so that you can copy and paste it. Something like optical image recognition, except you're not doing it on paper, you're just doing it digitally. So I'll just type that in here. And there you go. Now, I have literally just typed out every single color that you see over here by hand. So if that doesn't deserve a sub, I don't know what does. There you go. I've just manipulated you into subscribing. Please subscribe. Thank you. Okay, anyway. Now, the way that you can get these colors without having to manually type them yourself is to actually, you can just go over to ChatGPT and then you can ask it to deliver you this in the same format. Just describe the format that you see here, or you can use a screenshot utility. So just install a screenshot utility like Grim and just type in Grim, and that's going to take a screenshot of your screen. And then you want to take that screenshot, pass it to an AI like Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity or whichever AI you use, and then ask it to extract this text and then give you a copy pastable version of it. Just copy that and then paste it. Okay, that's going to deal with the colors for you. Now, let's actually go over to the style part. Okay, here's where things start to get fun. Now, let's start with the universal selector, which is going to select every single element. And here, what we're going to be doing is, of course, removing all of the borders, then removing the border radius to 0 pixels, because we don't want any border radius unless we manually define it. Then we pick our font family, which we are using Advaita Sans here. So Advaita Sans, just pick sans serif here. Also, make sure to put a JetBrains Mono Nerd font here as well, or any nerd font of your choice, because this is the font that we're going to be using in order to put proper here, in order to get the icons working. And if you haven't installed a nerd font, it's just pretty simple. You do it with TTF JetBrains Mono Nerd. Or you can also get TTF Geist Mono Nerd. Depending on what the name of Geist Mono is, you just have to copy and paste that here. And then you're going to have to install it. Once you install, it should work. Then after that, we have a couple other things to do, like changing font size to 13 pixels. That's going to allow you to change the font size. Then you can also change it to something like 16 pixels. That's what it is by default. Or we'll just turn it off and keep it that way for now. Then after that, we're going to change min height to 0 so that none of the other elements are affected by default height. Here we'll change font weight to bold as well. Then after that, let's change padding to 0. So this is basically resetting our canvas of sorts so that we don't have to deal with any sort of default settings. Then after that, we have window Waybar. Now inside of here, we're going to make the background transparent. Background transparent. Then tooltip, that's going to have background as BG0. Background color, background, it's all the same thing. So at BG0, this is how you access variables. So background is at BG0, border 1px solid. Okay, 1px of solid border, it's going to be at BG3. Then border radius, that's going to be 12 pixels, because this border radius thing is what we're using for 12 pixels for every single module here. Then after that, tooltip label, that's going to be color. We'll change the color to foreground, and then we'll add a padding of 6 pixels. That should be good enough for the tooltip and the tooltip label. Then after that, we're going to go over to the workspaces. So hashtag workspaces, this is how you target this workspace module. Okay, so here in workspaces, let's go into here and change a couple of things. So first thing, background color will not make it Alice blue. Instead, we'll make it at BG0, which is going to be the darkest color of our colors that we have picked here for one dark. It's going to be the darkest color. Then after that, let's change the padding to be 5 pixels and 3 pixels. Now, the way that CSS shorthand works is this is for top and bottom. If you use only 2 values as shorthand, the first one is going to be top and bottom. Second one is going to be left and right. If you use 4 values, it's going to be top, right, bottom, left. Otherwise, top, bottom, left, right. So top, bottom, 5 pixels, left, right, 3 pixels. That's great. Then after that, we'll change the margin. So margin 0, 0, 0, 12 pixels, which means that top, right, bottom is 0 pixels of margin. The left will have 12 pixels of margin. Then we'll add in a border radius. Now here is where we're actually changing the border radius. We'll change it to 18 pixels, because why not? Then we'll add a border. It's going to be 1px solid. This thing is going to be BG1. The BG1 thing is basically a variant of this dark color. So these are the darkest colors. And as the number increases from 0 to 4, the colors start increasing in lightness. Then after the border, we'll just change the foreground color to be FG as well. Now, that's for the entire workspace module itself. As for the buttons, here's what we're going to do. So workspaces button, okay, inside of there, just change padding to 0 pixels. So top, bottom, 0 pixels of padding. Left, right is going to be 6 pixels. 6 pixels. We can configure this depending on how we want it to look. It can either be 4, 6, or 8. Just choose whichever one you like and that's comfortable for you. Then, of course, you're only going to see that once you actually reload and apply the changes. But until then, just follow along with me and type this out so that you can get to know for yourself. Now, after that, we'll change the margin. So margin is going to be 0 pixels and 3 pixels. Then border radius is 50 pixels. Color is transparent. Background will be at BG1. Then transition. Now here's where stuff starts to get cool again. Transition. Here we can basically pass any sort of animation / transition so that whenever we hover over certain elements or switch between one element or the other, right, like switch between workspaces, the action itself is animated and it looks cool. So we can do that with transition all 0.3 seconds, ease in, out. So all you want to animate every single part of this workspace that is animatable or transitionable. Basically, every part that you can apply a transition to, please do so. That's what you're telling Waybar. 0.3 seconds, that's how long it lasts. Then you have ease in, out, which is going to be the Bezier curve that we're using. Okay, then that's for the workspace button itself. Now we go to workspaces button.active. This is going to be the active workspace. So here, let's change the background color to be blue. But here, not Alice blue, it's just going to be at blue, so we can pick the color from here. Okay, at blue. Once that's done, we'll change the color, not call group, color, to BG0, so that it's kind of like you're peeking through the module itself, through the text, as to what's behind. Then min width. Min width, you use this to dictate the width. Actually, you can't use width directly, so we use min width to determine the minimum width of the module. Then transition, we apply the same thing here as well. So let me copy and paste that. After transition, we have font size. We can change the font size to whichever one we please. Let's just leave it for now. Or we'll actually change it to 13 pixels so that it's smaller and actually fits inside of the module itself. Great. Font size is done. Next thing we will deal with is the hover. So workspaces button : hover. Okay, now here you want to change background color to purple, then change color to at BG0. It's going to be the background color, border radius 16 pixels, min width 50 pixels, same as the active one, so that the thing grows in size, and background size 400%. Now, instead of me actually explaining background size, it's best if I show you how this works. So just stick around until we reload the bar config itself. Right now, it really feels like we're doing all this work without seeing where exactly it's going, but the big reveal at the end is going to be worth it. So just keep typing along with me. Then workspaces, button.urgent, background color is going to be red, color at bg0, border radius 16 pixel, then min width 50 pixels. Okay, great. Then background size, again, we just have to set that to 400%, 400%. Transition, just copy the same transition line here and paste that in here as well. With the transition, perfect. Now, we're almost done with the style config because the only rest of the thing we have to configure is this set of modules at the right-hand side. So let's do that. For battery, then for pulse audio, then for network, and for clock, and finally for custom notification. There you go. Now change background color to BG0 again, then padding can be 0 for the top, 15 pixels for the right side, top right, bottom left is going to be 15, then margin 0, 0, 0, so only 12 pixels of margin to the left hand side, then border radius 50 pixels, then border itself 1px solid bg1. That's it. Now here, the rest of what we're doing is basically just customizing the colors of each of the modules itself, as in the text color inside of the module. So clock is going to have a blue color, then our custom notification, that is going to have a FG color, just a color of FG, so color at FG, the foreground color. Then pulse audio, that's going to be our volume. So our volume will have a yellow color at yellow, so color at yellow, perfect. Then after pulse audio, it's going to be network, so hashtag network. We'll change that to at purple. Okay, actually I have to put color here, color purple. Then battery color at green. You can also add a margin here if you want to. Margin 0, 10. Let's keep the margin away for now. We'll see if we actually need the margin. And lastly, is that it? That seems to be it. So let's see how this works. Reload, and there you go. This is the absolutely stunning config that we were able to create just by typing all of that code in. God, it looks good. Okay, yeah, it genuinely looks beautiful. There you go. That is exactly why I didn't ask you to reload, because the big reveal at the end just makes it worth it. Just makes waiting for so long worth it. Now, let's see if there are any other customizations we can make. We can shorten this. We can replace 50 pixels, 50px with something like maybe 45px. That replaces it for the border radius as well as minimum width. That's no problem. Reload. Yeah, seems to be good. That works. Perfect. Now if we hover here, as you can see, it works here too. So that's great. Now, is there anything else? That's it. That's pretty much how you configure Waybar to look like this. Now there's one last thing where if we change the wallpaper, you'll get to know, but basically we have to put in a margin on the right hand side of this module here. So let's do that. Let's go to custom notification. Here we'll just add in a margin of top right, bottom. Okay, right is going to be 12 pixels, bottom left, nothing. If you reload, there you go. So 12 pixels of margin on the left side and on the right side. And here we get this. Okay, we also need to put that here. So let's do that. Top right, bottom left. Left is also going to require 12 pixels of margin. We just need to do a bit of tuning. And once that tuning is done, boy, oh boy, does this look sexy as hell. There you go. Now, to show you what the system tray looks like, let's open Vert Manager. Vert Manager, you want to go to Edit Preferences. So Edit Preferences, enable system tray icon. And by default, this is what the tray looks like. So you can open something like Discord, Spotify, or Virtual Machine Manager and enable this icon to test what it looks like. And it's just on the center of the screen, so it doesn't conflict with any of the other stuff we have going on. And that's it. That's how you can configure Waybar to look as beautiful as this. Before you leave, there's one last thing that we have to do, which is change the GTK theme. Now, let's use NWG Look for that. If you haven't installed it, make sure to get it with NWG Look. Okay, use EA or Pacman or whichever one. Get NWG Look. Open that here. Okay, let's close this. NWG Look. It's called GTK Settings. Now here, you should be able to pick between different GTK themes. Let's choose GTK ADW GTK3 Dark. Now this one is not going to be installed by default, but all you have to do to install it is just type in ADW GTK theme. You can use Pacman or you can use EA here. And once you install ADW GTK theme, you're going to get this GTK theme, which looks absolutely slick and amazing. Just pick this and change color scheme to prefer dark to get a dark theme. And there you go. Now everything works perfectly and looks amazing. Okay, that's it. Now, one last thing. Yes, we have another last thing after the last thing. And that is going to be a wallpaper. So let's actually find a suitable one dark wallpaper so that we can make the entirety of the setup match the one dark theme. So one dark color scheme wallpaper. Let's go here. Now, if we look for wallpapers, we should be able to find them here. They're here. Okay, they're not here, so let's look for it differently. One dark wallpaper. We'll just look for that. One dark wallpaper. Scroll down. There you go. Find a bunch of one dark wallpapers. And minimal. We'll have to find a good one, but until then, let's see what we can get. Okay, there's no preview, so we'll just have to wing it and just get a wallpaper. Let's do that. Let's just clone this and we can use a tool to do the work for us. So git clone, remember depth 1, depth equals 1. Okay, it's only 142, so it's going to get done quickly. Now, is there anything here? Nope, that's pretty much it. Everything looks clean and sexy and amazing as hell. Perfect. Let's close this out then. Okay, that's done. Now let's go to one dark wallpapers. And in here, let's go to minimal. Now in here, you want to make sure to have, first of all, installed the Ristretto image viewer. Once you get to Ristretto, just type in Ristretto. And you should be able to find, okay, let's actually open it in this directory. There you go. You should be able to find, again, get access to all of the different wallpapers. Now let's see which one's a good one here. What's this? Soystemd. Yes, perfect. Soystemd. Yes, ruined with Soystemd. Perfect. Now, let's see what else. See if we can find a couple more cool wallpapers. You can honestly pick any one of these ones and it would look so good. But let's look for that one good wallpaper. Yes. I too don't know what the fuck's going on. Okay, we have some funny ones in here. Yes, so this is the 8.6. Ta-da. Okay, let's get this one. This one looks good. OD underwater. So you want to copy that. OD underwater. Put that inside of pictures. You can make a pictures wallpapers directory. Pictures wallpapers. Put it there. Pictures wallpapers. Copy it there, and of course use swww to change the image itself. Image, pictures, wallpapers, OD underwater. Now watch the transition. Watch the transition. Transition type, center. Ta-da. There you go. That's what you can do. Now, due to the nature of this wallpaper, because it's so minimal, and because the background color of this wallpaper is literally the same as the color of the modules, it seems to really blend in quite a lot. But if you manage to use a tool like ImageGo Nord or something like that in order to change a wallpaper into the one dark color scheme, you should find that it works pretty well and pretty good. But that is how you can configure it, configure Waybar and your wallpaper and your GTK theme to look absolutely amazing. And of course, if you want to learn how to make setups like these by hand, just like I taught you here, okay? Just like I spent 5 minutes typing out that one dark color file, right? If you want me to do that for you for literally every single part, when making a custom theme switcher and when making a wallpaper switcher and all the other fun stuff, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out Hyper Accelerator. It's a program with over 10 hours of content where I teach you how to do this stuff step by step without speeding anything up, without having to blitz through anything, just slow, calm, step-by-step process so that you can get the result that you want without having to mess around with 383 different YouTube tutorials. I seem to quite like that number. Anyway, there's a lot of different ways that you can possibly customize the notification daemon, which we have already installed, which is Sway NC, okay? So if I show you what Sway NC actually looks like, this is what it looks like right now. It seems pretty plain, pretty uncustomized, and so that's why you see some very gray looking background over here along with these types of notifications. So if I notify send something like hello, there you go. This is the type of notification that you're going to be seeing. This looks pretty boring, but we can make it look much better than that. However, not to overcomplicate it too much, I will show you the simplest way that you can set up a better looking notification daemon so that you can get started with it. So make sure to, first of all, go over to the Sway NC GitHub. So let's go to github.com, Eric Ryder, Sway Notification Center. Come on. Okay, there it is. Here's the link. So you just want to go here, or you can just go to your favorite search engine and then search up Sway NC GitHub, which should take you to this same link. Now, once you're in here, okay, as you can see, there should be an example config of the creator. Okay, this is the creator's new config. If you want, you can copy this one, but this is not the one that we're going to be using in this video. Instead, it's one that I have found inside of a part called config flex. So basically, the creator of this GitHub repo has created a place where people can share their configs and share dot files with each other and stuff. And after scouting this for myself, okay, after scouting the entire thing, I have found one that's almost always at the bottom here. So if I keep scrolling down, you should be able to find it. Okay, almost there. Yeah, there you go, this one. So this one by Z Diant, that's his name. Okay, this one, it looks pretty clean, pretty slick, pretty minimal. Seems like the kind of thing that you would be rocking on a minimal setup, which is what we have here. Seems pretty minimal because the only thing we have is a wallpaper, and even our Waybar seems to be blending into that wallpaper, so minimal it is, okay? Now, what we want to do here is click on this .files link. If you middle click on your mouse, by the way, that opens in a new tab. So you want to go here. It's called Hypernova, this guy's .files. So what you want to do here is, first of all, clone the .files and just type in git clone, okay? First of all, you have to make sure that you have git installed. So install that with yay or pacman-s. I'll just use yay-s git --needed. If you pass in this needed flag with either pacman or yay, what's going to happen is it'll check if the package is already installed. If it is installed, then it's not going to do anything. It will just skip. So it'll still ask me to type my password. I type that in. There you go. It's up to date, and so it's skipping, which means that there is nothing to do. Fantastic. Now, what you want to do is, again, copy this URL to clipboard. Make sure to clone this. You can clone it into whichever directory you want. Right now, I'll just clone it into the home directory. Okay, press Ctrl-L to clear the screen, by the way. Pro tip for you there. Ctrl-L always clears the screen. Doesn't matter whether you're in a TTY or inside of a terminal like here. Now, let's make sure to add in the depth equals 1 flag to Git so that we only get the current commit and not the entire history, because we don't want that. So let's just get this. There you go. It's much quicker because it only has to clone or receive 176 objects instead of 859. That's why you always clone with depth 1 unless you're doing any sort of specific developmental work on the tool or GitHub repo. Okay, you're only going to require the latest commit, so make sure to only get that. And another thing, as for Sway NC, we could write the configs ourselves. Okay, we could write each of the configs from scratch. But there is a better way, and you will soon understand why the way that I'm currently showing you is the best way to use Sway NC. Instead of having to write the entire config yourself, find a pre-made config, okay, and then tweak it in order to get it to look just right. Now, usually I tell you to start from scratch, okay, but you should only do that for applications where it actually makes sense. Like Waybar, for example, we started from scratch and it made sense because it's not too complicated to deal with. But for a Sway NC theme that actually requires extensive knowledge of CSS, and it requires you to know a lot more about each of the elements here and how to specifically target them so that you can change their theme, which takes a lot longer than customizing Waybar, as I just showed you. So the best thing for you to do is to clone, okay? Clone the .files of someone who's already customized it. As you can see here, there's quite a lot of them. You can choose whichever one that you want. Clone this and make sure to change the parts of it that you would like to change. And in doing that, you would basically be creating your own sway and see config. Because eventually, once you take something and then you modify it to a certain extent, okay, there's no going past that point. Like, there's no going back. Once you've passed that point of no return, that config is basically yours because you've changed it and modified it into something that your brain created. Now, let's do that. So, ls, we're in Hypernova, so you want to go inside of there, cd into there, tab to autocomplete, by the way. If you type ls-la, you'll find the .config directory. If I ls.config, you can see this sort of stuff. And by the way, here's a secret command that nobody's told you about before, but I will tell you. You can use the tree command, which you install with yay-s tree. Yay, not a. The yay-s tree. So this tree command, what it's going to do is basically list a directory like so. So if I tree.config, it's going to show you the entire this thing of the directory. So it's just going to list out each of the different parts, okay, each of the different directories inside of a directory, along with whatever files and folders. Just lists it out in a tree format so that you can visualize it easier. Okay, now what we want to do is copy config, okay, config sway and c. Make sure to pass in -r, and we'll put this at the end actually. Sure to copy it to our config folder -r. So once you do that, the config will have been copied over. Now, if I kill all -9 sway and c, and make sure it's dead because it doesn't like to die often, you're gonna have to stab it with a sword and just twist it, and it's hard to kill it. It seems to be dead. Now let's sway and see ampersand. Now if I open this, there you go. The config has already changed, which is fantastic. Now what we're going to be doing is adjusting the height, changing the fonts, and of course getting all of the colors to work properly. So let's do that. Let's close here. Let's go to config sway and see. And inside of here, you want to go to, first of all, config.json. Just get rid of the stuff that we're not going to be using. So let's see if there's anything over here. We'll just leave these toggles for now, the same as the default toggles that we saw earlier. We can deal with it later on. Let's get rid of this label because we're not going to be using that. Title, do we need the title for anything? No, not really. So we'll just leave all of this stuff for now. We can deal with it later if we have to. Of course, we'll change the width and the height and stuff as well. So control center width. Let's reduce the height to something like 460. Let's see what that does. And to make reloading easier, go into your Waybar scripts directory. Okay, go into here. Also add kill all -9 sway and see, and make sure to put an ampersand so that each process is forked to the background and does not have to wait until the other program is finished executing. Now, if I press mod key and R, that should reload sway and see as well, but something seems to be broken. Let's see what that is. Let's see. Now, if I /config Waybar scripts launch.sh, it seems to be dead. Waybar, what's going on? Okay, Waybar launches. Okay, so maybe we should not have put an ampersand next to this. So let's get rid of that. See if that solves the issue. And there you go. There you go. Our issue is solved. Perfect. Okay, that's a bit too small. So let's change 460 to something like 660. Reload again. Okay, much better. Make it something like 760. Reload. There you go. Works. Perfect. Great. Now we just have to customize the colors. So let's do that. So let's open style.css, figure out what's going on. Okay, so it's using pywall colors, which is why we're not actually seeing the colors. Not a problem whatsoever. We'll just get rid of that and we'll implement the one dark color scheme. This is where things start to get fun because we're going to be implementing the colors on our own. So central control. Okay. Got it. So here we're using some colors from that colors file that you saw earlier. Okay. This text variable is just going to be inside of foreground. Okay. Which is made available by the style.css file. So the best thing to do would be to import, okay, colors one dark.css. And the reason why we're doing it this way is so that we can leave room for a custom theme switcher in case you want to implement it later on. You can actually do that by introducing symlinks and making a bunch of folders and then symlinking the files inside of that folder to wherever the files need to be. All of which, by the way, I teach you how to do exactly step by step of follow this and type this command in so that you can get the desired result inside of the first link in the description, which is a program called Hyper Accelerator. There, I teach you exactly how you can use stuff like this, okay, in order to make a custom theme switcher so that you can change themes whenever you like, change themes that apply to the entire setup. Let's say you wanted to change from one dark to something like Nord, okay, it would show up like a menu like this, and you would just have to choose Nord, and then the entire setup would change along with the wallpaper. If you were to change between different themes, the wallpaper would have a center transition, as you saw in the previous videos. However, if you changed the wallpaper itself, then it would have a wipe transition like so. Just so you can distinguish between when a wallpaper is changing for a particular theme and when the theme itself is being changed. A nice little addition there. So if you want to learn how to make that yourself, just like you've learned so far, just like how my videos this far have gotten you to a setup that looks like whatever it looks like right now for you, right? If you want more, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out the program. Now, let's come back here. Let's actually make a, hold on. Yeah, let's make a colors folder inside of that. Inside of the colors folder, we create a onedoc.css. And inside of onedoc.css, in fact, we can just copy config waybar colors, onedoc to config sway colors. So once you copy that, make sure to quit. Now if we open, there you go, all the colors are there. Now all that needs changing is the color name. So let's do that. So you want to go into themes, Nova Dark, central control, make sure to change the color name. So text is going to be FG, background alt is going to be BG0. Okay, selected, we'll make that blue. Hover is selected, which is relying on this, so that's fine. Urgent can be red. Now, if you reload, we should have colors. Okay, we're still missing something, but that's no problem. Let's get rid of the alpha function. See if it works now. Okay, we're starting to get the colors back. Fantastic. Now, the only thing we need is to, okay, background. There you go. There is no background here, so let's do that at define color. We'll create a new variable, define color background. They want to put in at bg0 here. Now if I reload, there you go. Finally, we have a background. That's it. That's perfect. Now we can do a couple of things here. We can either add blur to this. Okay, we can blur sway and see so that we get a beautiful blur effect, or we can just tone down the opacity. So let's do the latter instead. Let's turn down the opacity. So here 0.55, so that's 55% opacity, no need. We can just make it opaque, which gives us this kind of look. Perfect. And that's pretty much it. We have already done most of what we need to do in terms of colors. Last thing to change, hold on, last thing to change would be the fonts themselves. And by the way, okay, turns out we also have the Empress player, which is basically just a music player. So if I go to YouTube, for example, let's open in Cognito window. Let's go to youtube.com. Okay, let's play some sort of song, a Lakey inspired song, perhaps. Lakey inspired. Just play this. Okay, now we should be able to see it show up here. Okay, if it doesn't yet, we'll just have to reload. Okay, there seems to be something that's going on that's preventing Empress from showing up here for whatever reason. Let's see. At background sec. Okay, so we need to replace all of the colors. So let's do that. Okay, now at. If you want to get rid of all of the, or actually get to know where all of the colors are, all you have to do is search for an at symbol. That'll show you all the colors. Okay, so here, background selected, alt, looks good. All of this is good. Keep scrolling. At text is here, I'm guessing. Yep. We'll keep scrolling down. And background sec was something that we found. Yep, there is no background sec, so let's get rid of that. Is there anything else? Again, this background sec, so we'll just get rid of that. Now, if we reload, still don't see anything. That's okay, that's something. Let's see what could be causing that. Let's kill all -9, sway and see. Make sure it's dead. Okay, it doesn't show up. Sway and see ampersand. Okay, now if we open, okay, still doesn't show up. No problem. I suppose this is something that we'll just have to disable if we want an even more minimal config. Okay, we could troubleshoot this, but then it would make the video too long. So I leave the task of troubleshooting why the media player isn't specifically showing for sway and see over to you. But for right now, we actually have a pretty cool looking notification daemon that displays us the notifications whenever we need it to. You can also do the same thing with notify send. Okay, and this is what the notifications look like. Pretty sweet. Now, if I were to launch the notification again, okay, this is what it is like. Let's just wait for it to fade on its own, and then we'll check out what it looks like here. There you go. You can just click this, and this is what notifications look like. Awesome. Now, let's also change the font. Right now, the font family is JetBrains Mono Nerd font. That works. But let's make it something like Advaita Sans so that it meshes in with the rest of the setup. And let's get rid of that. There you go. Reload. Okay, it works. Now, another thing is CSS really doesn't like it when you put the size of the font here itself. So let's get rid of that. JetBrains Mono should be one word. Nerd font propo. Perfect. Now, there you go. Things are starting to look much, much better. Now, last thing to fix is going to be the icon spacing itself. So let's do that. Let's go to config.json here. We want to find the icon itself and then make sure the spacing is right. Now, the reason the creator might have had to mess around with spacing like this is because he wasn't using the right font, but we've obviously fixed that, which means that, yep, everything is perfect. Now, if you want to change the actual commands, this is how you do that. nwg-look is used for changing GTK themes, as you saw earlier. So if I open this, there you go, press this, this opens. Blue Man Manager, that's your Bluetooth stuff. This is for muting, and this is for unmuting. Yep. And that should be it. That is how you can turn Swayancy from a boring old notification daemon to something that looks like this. Looks pretty sweet. And also, if you want to learn how to get this along with a custom theme switcher and wallpaper switcher and basically turn Hyprland into a complete desktop environment, right, as you have taken steps to get started with by watching this video and the previous ones, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out Hyper Accelerator. It's a program where there's over 10 hours of video training where I show you exactly how to do this stuff, where to go, like what websites to check out for certain themes, where to actually get different wallpapers, where to get different GTK themes, so on and so forth. I basically show you everything on my screen. I click into the different elements. Okay, I type in the code. Okay, just like I did in the last video where I literally typed out that entire file, the entire one.css file for Waybar. I do that and much, much more. So if you want access to that, go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out Hyper Accelerator. Now, lastly, for the final touches, the seasoning to our dish, which is going to complete it. So we'll get started with, first of all, changing our configs. Okay, so if I go to Hyprland's config file, and let me actually go into Hyper, god damn it, there you go, config Hyper. If I open the Hyprland config file, this is what you can see here. Okay, now, if you see this little part here, it says you can split this configuration into multiple files, create your files separately, and then link them to this file like this. So you just have to source. Now, the reason why you want to do this is because it makes maintenance much, much easier. That way, you don't have to go into one particular file and then scroll for eternity before you find something. You neither have to mess around with, what do you call it, Vim's search function either. You don't have to mess around with find and replace. You just have to open the file where you have stored a particular part of your config, and then you just edit that and you're done. This is like something that I would like to call modularity, okay? Modularity is basically the noun form of the word modular, right? Or something like that, basically, the abstract noun form, whatever English has designated it to be, right? Modularity is the concept where basically we take one file and then split it into multiple files so that we can make maintenance easier. And this, in fact, is what I teach you in even more detail inside of the program, which is the first link in the description. So if you want to know more about this, which I will show you in just a second, but if you want to know more, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out Hyper Accelerator. It's a program which has over 10 hours of video training where I've shown you exactly like I did in this series, how to go to certain websites, what links to click on, what exactly you're supposed to copy into your config files, so on and so forth, basically guiding you through the exact step-by-step process that you can follow in order to get custom theme switchers and wallpaper switchers and setups that adapt to your wallpaper, like dynamic material use stuff. All of that, I teach you how to do that. So if you want to learn that, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out the program. Now, as for making the Hyprland config modular, if we were to actually turn the entire config file into a bunch of different modules, it would take way too long. So I'm only going to show you a little snippet of how you can do this for yourself. Let's take 3 sections. Okay, we'll take the monitors section and we'll take animations. Okay, animations somewhere here. And we will also, there you go, animations. And we'll also take the key bindings. Most importantly, you're going to have to split apart the key bindings. So we'll start with that first. And then if you want, you can also do window rules, windows and workspaces. But let's first start with key bindings. Okay, so what you want to do is create a new file. So config hyper binds.conf. Okay, you can call it keybinds, keybindings, binds.conf, whatever you want to call it. Make sure it ends in .conf because that is the extension which config files use for Hyprland. Okay, now that you're in here, you can just copy this entire part. If you're in Vim, you can just highlight it, and make sure to cut. And you can right click paste. All your keybinds are going to be here. Now you can get rid of the extra empty lines. Now at the top here, you can also get rid of this example BS. Once you're here, all you have to do is just type in source equals home/.config hyper binds.conf. And look, as soon as we write it, it says found no match because the file hasn't been written yet, as you can see by this plus icon. So we're just going to write the file. And now if we just reload Hyprland's config file, which we're going to have to do through an existing terminal, hyperctl reload. There you go. Reload the config file. Everything works perfectly. Just fine. No problem. We'll also get rid of this source stuff. You can just put a comment here that says import files. Import files. Now we'll do this for a couple of other files as well. We'll do it for monitors. So all you have to do is just open config hyper monitors.conf. Or you can do this in a different way. Okay. If I show you the current, hold on, directory structure, let's just ls config hyper. Here you have hyprland.conf, binds.conf, and then there's going to be monitors.conf, so on and so forth. But if you want to split this into even more of a modular config, you can just literally make a folder called config hyper modules and then move config hyper, actually binds.conf into config hyper modules. So you can move that and also make sure to change it here, modules binds.conf. And as you can see, there's still no error. You can type hyperctl reload. Everything works. Yep, perfect. Okay, so you can just separate it out into another folder if you wanted to. Let's do that for monitors. So config hyper modules monitors.conf. In here, you just want to copy this part. So you want to cut, paste, make sure to get rid of all of these lines. You can press YY to copy if you're in Vim, paste that here, change binds to monitors.conf. And there you go. This is what you see. Now, this seems to be not working because it says the file doesn't exist at all. Let's see here. Okay, we have to write the changes, of course. So write the changes. Now, if we type hyperctl reload, okay, it works. The monitor slightly zoomed out and the resolution increased for a second, so it might have bugged out the recording, but anyway, that's how you're supposed to do this monitor setting. Now after that, we'll pick one more and let's make it auto start. So we'll go to config hyper modules auto start.conf. In here, you just copy this, cut, paste. Okay, ta-da. Get rid of these lines. You want to copy this line, paste it here. Change monitors to autostart.conf. Make sure to write this file first so that there are no issues. There you go. No issues on this side. Perfect. So that is the first thing in finishing touches covered. Okay, the second thing is just going to be commenting out configs so that you can tell what part of the config is going to do what. Now, in our Hyprland config, this has already been done to a certain extent. As you can see here, it's already been done to an extent. Auto start necessary processes, so on and so forth. You just have to do that for all of the different config files that you're going to possibly create, whether it be for Hyprland, for Sway and C, for Waybar, or whatever. Okay, you're just going to want to comment out the configs. And if you notice, we don't actually have that good of a way to switch wallpapers. Every single time we're going to have to use the swww command, which is already a mouthful to say, right? We're going to have to use the su command and pass in the path for our wallpaper. But that gets pretty annoying, so let's make a script for it. How do you make a script for that? Well, apart from teaching that inside of the program, this is how you're going to learn how to do it yourself. Okay, so make sure that .local bin is a directory, okay? And you want to add this directory to your path, which is pretty easy to do if you have followed along and if you've installed omyzsh. So make sure that you find path over here. You come from bash, you might have to change your path, find this path line. Okay, make sure to uncomment it. This will add .local bin to your path variable, which basically allows you to execute any programs inside of .local bin without you having to type / before the program name every single time. So let's say you came up with a cat alternative, right? A bin cat alternative, and you put that inside of .local bin. Okay. Now, instead of you having to type /cat every single time, you can just type cat, and because it's in the path variable, it's going to get picked up. Okay, now we've created the path. You just have to source.cshRC. Everything works. And okay, seems like the terminal still doesn't want to open. Might just have to log out and log back in. So we'll keep these two terminals alive and open for now. Let's then go to local bin. Now here you can name your wallpaper changer or wallpaper setter, whatever you want. I like to call mine wallset, so I'll just call it local bin wallset. Now in here you want to type in shebang bin bash. Now this is basically a shebang line as we call in shell, which is going to determine the shell that your script is going to be interpreted with. Okay, now in here, all you want to do is just type in swww img and then a argument, the first argument that is going to be passed to this file. Now let's right quit, and now if I type wallset, it says permission denied because we have to chmod +x change mode .local bin wallset. Okay, once you do that, wallset, there you go. It says the following required arguments were not provided, so we just have to give it an image. Let's do that. Let's see whether we still have the wallpapers. Let's go here. There you go, one dark wallpapers. We'll go in there. Go inside minimal ristretto. Ristretto dot. We'll see which wallpapers we can take from here. Okay, this one looks pretty good. It's od_space 01, so we'll just set that. One dark wallpapers minimal od space 01. And there you go. It works, but it's kind of messed up. So let's try that again. It still seems to be messed up. Well, it's most likely because of the resolution, but just in case, let's change the wallpaper and let's see what happens. Yeah, so the only thing that's different here is the stretch or fill part of the wallpaper setter. Now let's see what happens if we just pass this. Okay, if we just pass this to swww itself. So img here. And okay, seems like we're dealing with the same issue. Now this has something to do with the resolution being changed earlier, but as soon as we opened the application launcher, okay, this is a little quirk that happens. If the wallpaper seems to be distorted or if it's just pushed to the side or something like that, if you open any sort of layer, whether it be refreshing Waybar or opening an app launcher, it just goes back to its normal position. And so wallset is not the issue here because all we have to do is, again, just pass in our favorite wallpaper inside of here and it works. That's it. Perfect. Now we have configured a wallpaper changer as well. So instead of having to type swww img every single time, you just have to type wallset and then it's going to change our wallpaper. We can take this one step further and then put this inside of a GUI wrapper, which allows us to access it using Rofi. Okay, that would be a fun project, which I've made a video on it in the past. If you want, you can check that out. But of course, I teach you exactly how to do this. Okay, how to take the wallset command and turn it into a GUI wrapper, which allows you to choose between different wallpapers inside of a menu, which most likely you've seen in my previous videos. If you want to learn how to do that, you can find that inside of the program. Okay, so that is the wallpaper changer done. Now inside of the Hyprland config file itself, we're going to tweak some things related to decorations. Because right now the decorations look pretty boring and that's not fun. Because we all love a life full of little fun stuff. Now, okay, seems like, let's just open a terminal through Kitty, like so. Okay, so first of all, the gaps are not equal. So you want to make this 10. That way the gaps are equal. Okay, you can also change this to something like 18. Gaps in can be 9. That also makes sense. Or you can just make this 8. have the gaps be equal on all sides. Perfect. Border size is already good. Now this is for the active and inactive border. That also works. Resize on border. We don't need that. Allow tearing. We don't need that either. Here for the layout, I've made 3 videos depending on which layout you want to choose and how you can actually go about configuring them. So we'll leave the layout for now. We'll just leave it as dwindle. As for the decoration, the rounding, this seems to be a pretty rounded config. So we'll increase the rounding a bit further. 14. Okay, looks good. Rounding power. If I increase the power of rounding, okay, just makes it more rounded. That works. Now for active and inactive opacity. Before I show you how to mess around with these settings, we're going to want to mess around with blur. So right now the blur is pretty weak, okay? It doesn't really look that good, as you can see here, but we can make it look much, much better. So first of all, increase the size of the blur, okay? Second thing we can do is increase the number of passes. So if you want a more acrylic look, as you can see, just turning up the number of passes is going to give you that acrylic feel. So you're not just blurring the background behind you, it's kind of like you're taking an acrylic surface and then putting that on top of the wallpaper. As you can see, things are really starting to look very, very acrylic, which is perfect. Now, if you want to get the same sort of blur as you see in my other videos, okay, I've detailed the settings like vibrancy, and then we also have dimness. There's a lot of settings that you can configure basically inside of this one over here. But in order for the purpose of our minimal config, this works. Whatever settings that they've provided here are plenty because we can get this blur effect. We can also change the grain if you wanted to, but that's for a separate video. So for now, this is the blur settings we have. So if you want this kind of blur setup, you can copy it. If you want to tone down just how much of the blurring leads to the acrylic effect, you can do so with passes. Size of the blur just determines how blurry the window is. That's it. Passes determines how many times the blur program, okay, let's just call it a program. The blur program is going to be ran, which means how many times the blur will be applied on a particular window. So if I raise that all the way out to 10, you're basically not going to be able to see anything because it's going to be opaque. But 3 looks pretty good. You can, pretty sure you cannot use a floating or depth. No, you can't. It's not an int, so you have to pass in an integer, which is 3, so it works. There you go. Shadow, we can increase shadows much more as well. Okay, so as for the shadow, you want a much darker shadow. Just make this black with EE, that works. Okay, maybe it's a bit too dark, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's the material black for background, that works. Increase the range of the shadow. Okay, perfect. If you want to increase render power, you can do that. Okay. If you want the maximum amount of shadow, you can just reduce it completely to 1. Maybe this one will allow values. Nope, never mind. If you have render power is 0, this is what makes the windows look like. Unfun, because it can look better. So we'll just keep render power at 4 so that shadows look minimal. Maybe even 3. And there you go. This is what you can make shadows look like. If you want bigger range, just have to increase the range so that the shadows look more pronounced. And you can also mess around with render power in this way to get shadows looking just the way you want them to. There you go. So that is it for the Hyprland config. Okay, that's it for all the decorations that we can do. Now, in terms of animations, as you can see, there's a lot of different animations. Configuring them here would take way too long, so we'll just leave the default animations as they are. They look pretty good, and they still definitely get the job done, as you can see. They work. So we'll leave that for now. That's our Hyprland config done. Now, let's go over to the last thing, which is going to be changing a bunch of the font stuff. So if you haven't already installed, NWG Look, make sure to install it with EA-S or Pacman-S. Once you get that, just make sure to open NWG Look, not the clipboard manager, but the GTK settings app. Now in here, make sure to have selected your GTK theme to be ADW GTK3 Dark. Okay, choose a good font. Right now, I've chosen Adwaita Sans Regular because that's the font that's going to be on pretty much every single system if it's in 2025, right? This is the default font. It used to be Cantarell or Noto Sans, but this font is much clearly better. It's just so much better. If you want to choose a different font, of course, you're welcome to choose something like Noto Sans or whatnot. That also looks good, but depending on your taste, you might just want to leave it as Adwaita Sans. Okay, so choose the font here. Now for the icon theme, we haven't chosen a proper icon theme. So let's actually do that right now. The icon theme that I use most of the time is going to be something called Papyrus Dark. So you can install that with Papyrus icon theme, papyrus icon theme, and papyrus folders. Now, while we're at it, if you also want the macOS mouse cursor that you see in my videos, make sure to install apple_cursor, Apple cursor, and that's it. So those three packages are what I use. Now, by default, Papyrus icon themes folder color is going to be blue. If you want to change that, make sure to run the papyrus folders-c black command. Enter your password. Here it'll say changing color of folders to black. Close and reopen. You're going to see this black color. So let's set the icons to papyrus dark. So let's set mouse cursor to macOS. Okay, looks good. But in order for the macOS cursor to be applied everywhere, you're going to have to use hyper cursor, or hyperctl to set the cursor. So you can use hyperctl set cursor macOS 24. As you can see, it should work. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, that works. Create macOS 20, maybe 32. Yes, definitely. Okay, so the size is definitely working. It's just that I most likely have another environment open on a different TTY, which is why it doesn't seem to be complying. But as soon as you run this command after installing Apple Cursor, it's going to work for you. So you have nothing to worry about. So make sure to select macOS here and hit apply. Lastly, the font, as I was mentioning earlier. Make sure to keep font hinting as slight. Hinting is basically a bunch of mathematical instructions that are added to the edges of certain glyphs, as we call them. Okay, each character here is called a glyph. So what hinting does is basically adds stuff to the edges of glyphs in order to make it fit with the pixel grid that is on your monitor. That is on your monitor, basically. So just keep that to slight, and Waybar seems to have died for some reason. Let's try and reload that. There you go. Now for anti-aliasing, make sure to pick RGBA, because unless you're using a very specific kind of monitor, which is Apple's Retina display or something like that, RGBA is going to be the best setting that's going to give you the crispest font rendering. Make sure to select RGBA order as RGB as well. Okay, then text scaling factor, you can leave that to 1, so on and so forth. Here you can customize stuff if you needed to, blah blah blah, and that's it. You won't have to mess around with anything else much. So close, and if I reopen NWG look, okay, you can already notice that the font looks so much crisper after selecting RGBA. Last thing I'll show you is changing the font weight. So this is another secret pro tip that, unless you have watched my videos, you're not going to know. So let me show you. You can create a file called config gtk 3.0 gtk.css, and in here you can actually pick the universal selector, and what you can do here is font weight. So just set the font weight to something like 600, 700, 600. So let me show you what that looks like. You can just set the font weight to 600. And because you're using the universal selector, every single text element and basically every single element is going to have a font weight of 600, which is very obvious, as you can see here. If 600 is too much, you can tone it down to something like 500, just to beef up the font a little. Make sure that it looks good. 500, yep, definitely looks good. That's perfect. And that's it, folks. That is all that I have to show you today for basically finalizing your setup, your Hyprland setup that we have worked together. And this is just the beginning, honestly. There is a lot more stuff that we can do here. We can set up better application launchers. We can set up a wallpaper switcher that has a GUI, like the one that you see here. We can set up a custom theme switcher. We can set up a theme switcher that takes colors from our wallpaper and then applies it to Waybar, Rofi, W logout. I don't think we configured a logout menu here, but anyway, I teach you that as well. And applying that to the notification daemon as well inside of the program, which is the first link in the description. So if you have followed until here so far, then honestly, the next logical step to complete your setup would be to check out the program. So if you would like to do that, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out Hyper Accelerator. If you liked the video, hit like. If you loved it and want to see more like this in your feed, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Stay rising. Mwah.